Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Back with you after another two-game stretch against the Blue Jackets and the Penguins. A couple divisional matchups to break down for the Caps. And looking ahead to a big Western road trip this week. Caps Hockey Review, let's go! And off we go. Caps Hockey Review is underway. Couple games to discuss as per the usual. Blue Jackets and Penguins. Couple divisional opponents. Haven't seen everybody in the division yet. Still haven't played the Hurricanes. Still have not played the Islanders. So that'll come later on. We'll get there when we get there. Anyway, for the Blue Jackets. It's a bit of a danger game for the Caps. Obviously, you're on the second half of a back-to-back. We discussed that. Second half of a back-to-back. You know the game, it's not going to be pretty. There's probably going to be some sloppy play, and there was. It's probably going to take the boys a little bit to get their legs going, and it did. But they found a way to win a hockey game. That's what matters. We don't care about style points. It don't matter. Just get the win. And they did. So, for the Caps, more good play. More good play. That top line just continues to drive this team. Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Wilson continue to produce every single night in some way or another. Assists, goals, whatever it might be. Somebody on that line is scoring. They all three might score. Who knows, but they're all putting up points. Anyway, the secondary scoring is what is the most impressive thing of these past two games. And for the Blue Jackets game, Garnet Hathaway, the unsung hero, he, along with Nick Dowd and Carl Hagelin, obviously the regular Caps fourth line, they do a ton of great things that just don't show up on the stat sheets or the score sheet at the end of the night. They do show up on a stat sheet. A lot of block shots, face-offs, big defensive plays, locking down other teams' top scoring threats. That's what they do. And somehow, after doing all that, they still manage to usually create some good scoring chances as well. So, it's really, really nice when one of these guys is rewarded for all that effort, for all that hard work. Of course, every guy works hard, but these guys are on a different level. So, Garnett Hathaway, 2 goals. 2 goals in this Blue Jackets game. Really, really great to see him getting some goals, getting on the sheet. Love that. We love to see just that. Also, Conor Sherry. I talked about it in the previous video. He struggled a little bit kind of early in Washington, but since really for most of this year and especially the last few weeks, we've seen him thrive. I mean, he's getting time on the top power play unit with all the injured guys missing, and he's a driving force on offense every night. I talked about it before. You've got, top line's going, that's great. We need that. But what we also need, and that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, is the depth scoring. Those secondary sources. Guys who necessarily aren't putting the puck in every night, but a group of probably 4 or 5 that usually maybe 1 or 2 of them are finding the net every night. So, for the Caps, Garnet Hathaway has been huge these last couple games. Lars Eller has been huge. Daniel Sprong has chipped in. Connor McMichael, Martin Farivari. There's a lot of guys. A lot of sources for secondary offense. And Nick Jensen. I haven't talked enough about Nick Jensen, Dmitry Orlov. It just seems like every guy on this roster is finding ways to contribute offensively. And that's what makes a dangerous team. I can sit here and I can talk about, of course, your big names are your big names. They're going to do what they're going to do. But it becomes more about where else is your scoring coming from? Especially with, okay, Oshie's out, you look to him for goals. Backstrom's out, you look to him. And Mantha's out, you look to him. Those are three of your primary sources for offense sitting on the bench. It's been well documented. I've beaten it like a dead horse, but the injuries keep coming, so we have to keep discussing it. Anyway, with all these guys out, you cannot expect the top line to carry the load every single night. They have, but you got to give them some help. You got to give them some support, and the rest of the boys have done that. So this is a dangerous hockey team, and maybe not getting the respect that they deserve at this point. I mean, we see they're not talked about like they were in 15, 16, 17 territory. Obviously the Carolina Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning are all teams that get discussed. The Colorado Avalanche, the Edmonton Oilers are really good this year. So we talk about kind of like teams in tiers almost. Like you have your Stanley Cup expecteds. Okay, that's Tampa, that's Boston, it's a select group. Carolina Hurricanes, excuse me there, little brain cramp. Anyway, the Caps aren't really mentioned in that expected to win the Stanley Cup territory anymore. They're definitely a playoff team, but the thought with the Caps is like, okay, they'll make it, but we don't really expect them to go very far, is pretty much where the Caps have been the last couple of years. I'd say 2 years. So, but moving past that, that's just analytic talk. The Caps look like a team that could make a very deep run through the playoffs. It's very early in the season. If we were sitting here right now in March and I was talking about the team this way, with top guys doing what they need to do every night and then depth guys chipping in and adding to it, I would probably be the most excited hockey fan in the world, because that is what makes a Stanley Cup champion. So for the Caps, you need to find a way to sustain this. Of course, you're going to have your downtimes. You're going to have your bumps. It's not always going to go your way. It's not always going to be perfect. But find a way to stay consistent. And then we've seen it so many times these last however many years. The teams that hit their stride and find their way and hit their groove in that latter part of the season, through February and March, those are the teams that typically make the deep playoff runs. So for the Caps, hopefully they'll all be healthy by then, but looking to the future is not what I'm looking to do here. Moving past the Blue Jackets game, Zach Fucale made such a great moment for this team, for himself, for his family, for us fans. NHL debut, shutout against the Detroit Red Wings. We've talked about it a ton, but it's a great story, so just a little bit more and I promise I'll stop. He was sent back to Hershey in between these two games on Saturday. Kind of expected, confirming what we already kind of knew. Vitek Vanacek is not going to be out long term. His injury was really nothing serious. Keeping him out was more a precaution than anything else. So somebody has to go back to Hershey. Fucale, sorry bud, down you go. Hopefully we'll see him back though. I do have some theories about what could happen this offseason, but we'll save those for another time. Anyway, Penguins. Big one. Big game. This is one of the ones that gets circled on the calendar when the schedule comes out. Home game against the Penguins. Any game against the Penguins, you could put it in a frozen parking lot, and it would be a big game. These two teams don't like each other. Obviously, they have stars up and down the lineup, which both teams are missing some of right now. So it really is an interesting battle. They're almost a mirror of each other. You've got, obviously, Sidney Crosby's back in for this one, so you have your two captains, your superstars that have been pitted against each other since day one of their careers, and you've got some supporting cast. But you're missing, usually the right-hand man. Ovi's missing Backstrom, Crosby's missing Malkin. So both teams are in kind of a similar spot. You have a couple big names, but you're looking for that secondary scoring elsewhere. And that can make for an interesting game, and it definitely did. Definitely wasn't the game I thought we would see, but it's what we got, and I gotta say I'm happy about it. The Caps owned every bit of this hockey game from the opening puck drop to the final buzzer. Every aspect of this game was just owned by Washington. Shots, chances, takeaways. Didn't win the faceoff battle, but they came real close. Kuznetsov with another great performance in there. I gotta mention it. Kuz is finding ways to win faceoffs. And against a team in the Penguins that's typically very good in the faceoff circle, great to see. Anyway, every aspect of this game was owned by the Capitals. I cannot overstate that. They played extremely well, and they played a brand of hockey that we haven't seen them play in a couple of years. I mean, owning the game physically. They hit everything in sight against the Penguins, and they scored. It almost seemed like they were scoring every other shot. Just great chances all over the ice. We saw Ovechkin get a couple assists. Kuz with a goal and an assist. Wilson had a goal. I think he had a couple assists as well. Top line keeps doing its thing, but the secondary scoring, I'm going to talk about it again because it keeps coming up. Garnet Hathaway, a goal in this one. So 3 goals in 2 games. He would add in an assist. So when you're hot, you're hot. For Hathaway, he's buzzing right now. Hopefully he keeps her going. Lars Eller's finding his way, scored his first goal of the season against the Red Wings, and he's still assists, lots of assists. He set up Daniel Sprong for a big one the other night. And Conor Sherry. I keep talking about him too because I have to. He has become what the Caps hoped when they signed him. That's the guy that you can lean on for secondary offense every night. They have that in TJ Oshie, and I would say even Oshie's probably more of a primary guy. But Sherry is, I talked about in the last video too, we're seeing the Conor Sherry we saw when he was with the Penguins during those cup runs. Caps got a front row seat to how good Conor Sherry was in those playoffs. And we're seeing that. He's finding ways to score huge goals in big moments, create offense. That's what we need. That's what we want to see. So this game, Vanacek played really well, made the saves he needed to make. He continues to make his case. I will not sit here and say he's going to be the number 1 goalie because I don't want him to get hurt again. Every time I say it. Vanacek's the number 1 goalie, has a bad game, gets hurt, something happens. So I'm not going to say it. I am going to shut up about the goalies this time, and hopefully it kind of settles itself. Finally, maybe just finally, we will see this situation in the net solidified. That's really the only part of this team that isn't absolutely clicking right now. Offense is great. Defense is great. Oh, secondary scoring, getting back to it, Martin Feravari. D-man scoring the first goal of the game the other night short-handed. Last night. I apologize. Short-handed. D-men scoring short-handed goals, you don't see that every day. That's a special moment. Big goal for Feravari's second of the season, so he keeps buzzing. And finally, big win. Big win. I did not expect it to go that way, but I'm very glad it did. And moving past the Pittsburgh game, we have a few other things to discuss. Nick Dowd, 4th line center, hopefully back from injury sooner than later on the West Coast trip with the Caps, as is TJ Oshie. So we may well see these two get back into the lineup in the next 4 games on this road trip. But Nick Dowd, re-upping with the Caps, 3 years, new contract, $3.9 million total value. I guess kind of a front load. It's it's a pretty small cap hit anyway, but $1.9 million the first year, 1.5 in year 2, and a nice even 1 to round out year 3. So keeping that fourth line together. They've been so good the whole time they've been together. So keep them together. I know Hathaway and Dowd are really good friends off the ice. I think Hagelin's kind of in there too. So really, really good things. Keep the boys together. Keep them happy. That's what we like to see. And finally, milestone time. I left it to the end because I didn't want to gush too much, but Alex Ovechkin officially passing Brett Hull on Friday night, becoming the 4th all-time scoring leader in the NHL. 742 goals. Next up is Jaromir Jagr, but we'll get there. Ovi should get there this season with the pace he's on. Maybe in the next couple months, we'll see that. Maybe in this month. Probably not this month. More than that. He might need a couple to do this one, but we should see it this year. The story around this latest milestone for Ovi is largely positive. However, there are some naysayers. There are some disappointed by this. Well, if you're not regularly on Twitter or following hockey social media, you might not be privy to this, and you'll be asking yourself, who the hell would be upset about Ovi passing another milestone? Penguins fans, certainly, because we know how even most of them at this point are like, yeah, I hope he does it. Ovi's a great player. The pettiness between Caps and Penguins fans about Crosby and Ovechkin kind of died a couple of years ago. I mean, both sides acknowledge that, either guy is great, not my favorite player, and I don't like him when he plays my team, but if he's doing his stuff and it's not against my team, I guess I can be happy about it. Anyway, no, it's not Penguins fans. No, it's not Rangers fans. Jude Hull. Most of you may not recognize that name. Brett Hull's son. Of course, the first in a couple generations of Hull men who have not played in the NHL. Of course, Brett, obviously, and his father, the great Bobby Hull, the Golden Jet, and the Golden Brett. Both great NHL players. But Jude did not make it to the NHL. He did play college hockey, but I'm not here to give you a history lesson. Basically, the gist is he's not very excited that Ovi has passed Brett on this list, was not excited about him tying it, and was much less excited about him passing it. I don't know what he expected. Was Ovi going to spontaneously combust after tying Hull and just never pass him? Now, in fairness, because the Caps fan part of me is saying, kid, we don't need your sour grapes. Pardon me while I adjust the lid here. We don't need the sour grapes. Be happy for the guy because we're seeing somebody do the impossible. We are seeing somebody in this era do something that nobody ever thought would be done. So, just be happy for the guy. I get it. In his defense, it is his father. There's nothing wrong with being excited for your dad and the records he set. And in further defense, obviously he was not around when when Gretzky set his goal record. Obviously not. He was still probably a twinkle in Brett's eye at that point. Certainly was not around when goodness gracious, when Gordie Howe set his part in this. Probably, Brett might have been a twinkle in Bobby's eye back then. And Jagr, Jude, I think, was certainly alive for that, but could he look at and appreciate what Brett had done over his NHL career and understand exactly what 741 was? I don't think so. So this is the first time, as I stumble through this, I apologize. This is the first time I'm sure that this kid is seeing somebody, an active NHL player, get higher on the list than Brett. So I could see maybe how that would irk you a little bit. Everybody's so excited to see, essentially, if you look at it from his perspective, my dad's dropping on this list. I'm not excited about this, but everybody else is. Obviously, my dad didn't play in the NHL, and I don't know what that's like. So I'm not going to judge too much, but at the same time, it's like, kid, just be happy for Ovechkin. Everybody else is. Even if Penguins fans can be happy for Ovi, if Flyers fans can be happy for Ovi, if Rangers fans can be happy for Ovi, you can too. You and John Scott should just start an Ovechkin sucks club, or we hate Ovechkin club, because you're about the only two with any kind of presence in a social platform to come out and say you're not excited for what the grade 8 is doing. So enough about those two. This is not the Jude Hull and John Scott hour. It is turning into Alex Ovechkin hour once again, but it's warranted. More milestones, more things to be excited about. Big games coming up this week to round it out. Western road trip. Anaheim Ducks on Tuesday night. Back-to-back, second of the season. LA Kings on Wednesday. Then they'll round out their trip with the San Jose Sharks, trip up to San Jose, and then a trip up to Seattle to play the Kraken. They'll make their only visit to Climate Pledge Arena. In fact, all four of these arenas, their only visits to these arenas this season. So, what do we expect from our favorite team? Well, more wins. My doubts are gone. This team has surpassed expectations considering all the injuries, everybody who's out. That don't matter anymore because we're going to keep going. And quite frankly, I'm really curious to see what happens to this lineup when guys start getting healthy. I mean, obviously, like you have Protas, Leeson, they're probably going to come out. Sprong, I don't want to see McMichael come out, and I don't really want to see Sprong come out, but I think Sprong will come out certainly. And Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, of course, will come out as well. For McMichael, I think he sticks in the lineup, barring some weird change in his game, but he has earned his place in the NHL, and at this point, he's still a young guy, but led the AHL in goals last season. So I don't think he's at a point in his career where playing in the AHL is going to benefit him. If he's going to get better, he's going to have to play at the NHL level. And certainly being in and out of the lineup and a healthy scratch here and there, it's probably not going to help him much either. So I think you keep him going. You're going to have to make some tough decisions if you're Peter Laviolette and the coaching staff, but that's what you get paid the big bucks for. Now, Dowd and Oshie, those two may be coming back in the next few games. Still no timetable on Backstrom or Mantha. Of course, Mantha is probably months at this point, and Backstrom might be 2. So these aren't decisions that are going to happen in the next couple days. Obviously, this is going to be over the next few months that we're going to see this all unfold. But I'm looking for this secondary scoring to continue, for these young guys to keep making their case to stick around. We'll find out. But Anaheim Ducks are a very good team. They are kind of hitting the upslope again. They're kind of got out of the basement and they're heading back up the mountain. Troy Terry has finally looking like he's blossomed into the exciting, great young player that he was expected to be. And you've got the other young guys, Max Jones, Max Comtois, Sam Steele. Everybody's kind of doing their thing over there. Jamie Drysdale, Trevor Zegras. Of course, you've still got veterans like Fowler and Getzlaff. And you've got John Gibson, one of the best goalies in the NHL. Probably top 3 goalies in the NHL in John Gibson. So that's going to be tough. The LA Kings, they're hitting the revenge tour. They have been extremely good this year. Jonathan Quick's had a resurgence. And again, a youth movement is kind of, you still got some veterans hanging around from the Stanley Cup days, but a lot of young guys coming in to be excited about for them. So I think that's going to be a tough one for the Caps as well. I think they're up to it, but definitely going to be a challenge. The Sharks, that that might be an interesting game. The Sharks are certainly not what anybody would have expected. If you would have told me 3-4 years ago that the Sharks would be a bottom 5 or 10 NHL team at this point, and they've actually played decent this year, but by the end of the year, I think that'll prove true. They're not going to be in a playoff spot. I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, this team looked locked and loaded for the next probably 5-6 years, and it just kind of fell apart. So, interesting look on this Sharks team. I haven't seen much of them this year. I would expect a win here, but you're on the road. It's kind of a long trip. Weird things happen. And then finally against the Seattle Kraken, to stop my rambling a little bit. The Kraken are certainly not having the level of success that the Vegas Golden Knights had as an expansion franchise, reasserting the point that what Vegas did was certainly special, and you're not going to see that every time. And I think I've talked about before too, NHL GMs didn't fall into the same pitfalls with this expansion draft that they did with the previous one. Trading away multiple picks and prospects to protect an extra player, essentially, was what it amounted to. Teams didn't do that for Seattle. So I think they're very much a build team. Should be a win for the Caps, but again, end of a road trip, who knows? So we are looking for 4 wins. If they can take 4 wins off this road trip, I don't think it's very likely. I think they might get tripped up in Anaheim or LA. But if they can pull 4 wins out of this road trip, it's going to be huge. I will have even more confidence in this team, and I have a lot right now. So, Vitek Vanacek should be the guy. Of course, we're going to see Samsonov because we've got a back-to-back, but looking for Vanacek once again to solidify himself. We are going to find out. I will be back with you after the Kings game, and we will take it from there, hopefully to talk about 2 more wins. Until next time, go Caps.